Leading Democratic fundraiser Clooney urges Biden to withdraw hours after prominent Democrat Nancy Pelosi sidestepped questions over Joe Biden's future in the U.S. presidential election. George Clooney delivered a devastating plea for him to step down. The well-known Democratic fundraiser and Hollywood star claimed that although the president has prevailed in many of his fights, the one battle he cannot win is the fight against time. His remarks followed former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's, who expressed rising unease within the party by stating that 81-year-old Joe Biden had running short time to determine whether to continue in the race following his disastrous debate with Donald Trump. The president has expressed time and time again his resolve to defeat Trump, 78, in November and continue as the Democratic Party's nominee. Though it was devastating to say it, Clooney stated in the New York Times that the Joe Biden he had met 3 weeks prior at a fundraising event was not the same as the Biden of 2010. The actor went on, "He wasn't even Joe Biden of 2020. Clooney remarked, "He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate." The Clooney co-hosted fundraising dinner in Los Angeles, which also included Julia Roberts and Barbra Streisand, raised an unprecedented $30 million, £23 million, for the Biden campaign in a single night. The president stayed for over 3 hours at the fundraiser, while Clooney took a quick photo and left. The Biden camp retaliated against the Hollywood star, according to an unidentified source who spoke to U.S. media. Additionally, the president's campaign made note of the fact that he had just returned in Los Angeles from Italy, where he had attended the G7 conference when he attended the fundraiser. "Our party leaders need to stop telling us that 51 million people didn't see what we just saw," Clooney wrote in his opinion piece. "It has to do with age, not much more," he went on. "We are not going to win in November with this president." Clooney went on to say that every member of Congress he had spoken to shared his concerns. When asked for a response, Mr. Biden's team cited a letter the president wrote to Democrats in Congress declaring his strong commitment to winning the election of Donald Trump. However, as Mr. Biden comes under fire while presiding over the NATO meeting in Washington, public discontent among his party keeps growing. Mrs. Pelosi, a powerful figure among Capitol Hill Democrats, seemed to dismiss Mr. Biden's assertion on Wednesday that he was committed to continuing. "I want him to do whatever he decides to do," she said on MSNBC's Morning Joe, in response to the question of whether he should continue in the election. "The president is free to choose whether or not to run for office. Time is running out, therefore we're all pushing him to make that choice." During the NATO conference, Mrs. Pelosi acknowledged the demands made of the president and told MSNBC, "I said to everyone, let's just hold off. Whatever it is you're thinking, either share it with someone in private or keep it under wraps until we see how this week goes. But the president has my utmost admiration." Since his June 27th debate with Trump, over a dozen elected Democrats have advised he give up on his campaign. Colorado Senator Michael Bennet dissented publicly on Tuesday night, making history as the first Democratic senator to do so. While he did not explicitly demand that Mr. Biden step down, he predicted that Trump will win the election, possibly with a landslide. As he stated in a Washington Post op-ed on Wednesday afternoon, Vermont Senator Peter Welch became the first Senate Democrat to publicly urge Mr. Biden to step down for the good of the country. Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Democrat from Connecticut, expressed to reporters his deep concern regarding Mr. Biden's chances of winning the election. Earlier in the day, New York Congressman Pat Ryan told the New York Times, "I'm asking Joe Biden to step aside for the good of our country and for my 2 young kids." The president's claim that he was running this race to the end was echoed by the Biden campaign. Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic House Minority Leader, will speak with Mr. Biden by Friday to address the issues raised by a number of members of the Congressional Party. Nonetheless, elected Democrats continue to offer strong support overall. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who was suggested by Clooney to succeed Biden, declared that he remained all in with the actor. Progressive House members like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the roughly 60-strong Congressional Black Caucus have openly endorsed Mr. Biden. Leading Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer declared on Tuesday, "I'm with Joe." However, according to Axios, Mr. Schumer has been discussing with donors in private that he is willing to fire Mr. Biden. Speaking to CBS News, the BBC's US partner, two prominent Democrats who wish to remain anonymous, claimed that elected Democrats, party contributors, and supporters of the president's party had seen a convergence of views during the past 24 hours. According to one of the individuals, the parties involved have come to a near consensus over Mr. Biden's course of action. At the NATO meeting in Washington, D.C., there were also a lot of unanswered questions regarding the Democratic campaign. Regardless of Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump, who is skeptical of NATO in the White House come next year, Secretary General of NATO Jens Stoltenberg expressed his confidence that the United States will continue to be a dedicated member of the organization. In spite of the reservations about Mr. Biden's candidacy, the BBC questioned Mr. Stoltenberg during a press conference on if the other 32 alliance members agreed with his optimism. Mr. Stoltenberg said, "I'm not saying we can always disregard concerns, but the more dangerous the world is, the more obvious it is we need NATO. It is in our collective best interest to stand together," he continued. That holds true for the US as well. On Thursday, Mr. Biden will have an uncommon one-on-one press conference. The following Monday, he will film an interview with NBC News, which will air later that night. Democratic voters in Pennsylvania, a swing state, expressed conflicting opinions of Mr. Biden when questioned by the BBC on Wednesday. Harrisburg resident Karen Gilchrist stated that she continues to fully support Mr. Biden because he knows exactly what he's talking about. However, Melissa Nash in Elizabethtown, who was using her laptop in a cafe, stated, "I'm conflicted because I think Trump is a bad idea, but I also think the country needs a strong leader."